Ah yes, Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, a truly beautiful mess of a game. I'm sure by now that there are no shortage of reviews talking about the problems this game has, so I decided to make my very own video giving my first impressions of about 10 to 15 hours into the game. And so without further ado, let's start with the positive stuff first and see what this game has to offer. Alright, let's go ahead and address the biggest game changer, being that this is the first ever open world Pokemon game, and I gotta say, it's pretty awesome. The feeling of being able to go wherever you want and exploring the different biomes and landscapes is such a nice breath of fresh air, or should I say, breath of the wild. Oh, okay, that joke's pretty old at this point, isn't it? Now in Pokemon Legends Arceus, yes I say Arceus, Arceus, tomatoes, whatever. Anyways, that game gave a nice feeling of exploration, but its world was separated into their own closed off sections that you had to choose to go to via the map once you left Jubilife Village. However, if there is one thing that continues into Scarlet and Violet from that game, it's just the amazing feeling of discovery, whether you're stumbling upon a new Pokemon or finding some weird structure out in the wild. It really does give you that sensation that this is a real world just waiting to be explored by you, the player. So as you're journeying across the Paldean region and catching and finding new Pokemon, you get greeted with some very nice, relaxing music as well. I even like the extra little touch to the music when you start riding on Coraldon or Miraidon, because the music starts to ramp up, making it seem like you truly are on a big adventure. I enjoy the songs for your rival and the gym leaders. However, I don't think the gym leader's theme song is as catchy as it was in Sword and Shield. Oh yeah, speaking of the gym leaders, there are 3 different stories that you work towards completing throughout the game instead of the typical get the 8 gym badges, beat the Elite 4, and take down the champion to become the very best. So you got the usual gym challenges that you have to take on, and each one has their own little mini game to play before taking on the gym leader. They're nothing too special though, because you can easily complete them and they're just very brain dead. Now the whole story about the Titan Pokemon is a very cool concept to me. I don't know, I just like the idea that you have to overcome these huge boss Pokemon so that Arvin, your classmate, can cook you up a nice new sandwich for you and your legendary pet Pokemon, allowing him to regain some of its powers, which lets you learn how to swim or glide or break boulders depending on which Titan you take on first. By upgrading your legendary pet, it expands your options of traversing through the world. I was able to get the ability to swim pretty early, which allowed me to tackle certain obstacles a lot easier than I originally could. And eventually, I learned how to glide. My only problem with the gliding mechanic is that after a few seconds, Corydon or Miraidon just starts to descend super fast, where in Legends Arceus, it was a nice steady glide, and you the player chose whether if you wanted to descend faster or not. Finally, we have the Team Star route. It demonstrates the new Let's Go mechanic, which is pretty awkward when you're using 3 Pokemon. Unfortunately, it's not any better even if you're using just 1 Pokemon out in the fields. As for the story, there's nothing too special about the Team Star stuff. So far, you beat their leader, which can be pretty difficult if you're not prepared for them, and you obtain some new recipes for TMs. And that's about it. Since I was talking about traversing through the world and traveling and stuff like that, I guess I should take this moment to talk about the picnic mechanic and, well, sandwiches. But I mean, what is there really to say? Is sandwiches, they're in the game. I mean, sandwiches are good. I mean, I can appreciate a good sandwich, okay? Alright, let's see here. I talked about the world, talked about traversal, talked about the music was good, yeah, the story, talked about sandwiches. I like sandwiches a lot. Okay, alright, that's it. Positives over. Okay, now let's discuss the bad stuff. All of the negative things in the game as of right now. And I guess I should start by addressing the biggest of them all, being the frame rate. Usually I am not the type of guy that goes on and on about the frame rate or the resolution in a game, so long as it does not become a major hindrance to my enjoyment of said game. But oh boy, is it really bad in this game. There are moments where you can just be walking through the fields and the frames just take a nosedive. It felt like the further I got in the game, the worse the frame drops got and more frequent. At one point, I entered into a heavily dense forest and it felt like I was playing the game in slow motion. Not to mention the graphic glitches that occur quite often. Sometimes the textures on walls, especially mountainous regions, they just start melting into each other for a moment and it just looks weird and very off-putting. It just breaks the experience for me. And speaking of glitches, the amount of times I glitched into a wall or got stuck in a falling animation and couldn't move was one too many. And as a casual player, I don't look for these glitches in video games. So when it does happen multiple times just by playing the game as intended, it is a major problem. Alright, so I watched this video by RGT85, shoutouts to him by the way, talking about how lazy Game Freak is when it comes to their biggest game. No, the biggest franchise ever being Pokemon. Having all this money at their disposal, and this is the kind of crap they give us. And of course people are gonna buy the game, myself included, because I mean, it's Pokemon. But anyways, let's move on to the battle system next. It's pretty much what you'd expect by now with Pokemon, but it ain't no Legends Arceus. In Scarlet and Violet, the battle system is so much slower than it was in Arceus. In that game, the battle animations was so much more streamlined and consistent. The flow of battle just felt so right in that game compared to Scarlet and Violet. There are moments where there are these weird pauses in between the action that take way too long, and the problem even happens outside of battle where nothing really is going on for like a solid 5 seconds, and it's just ugh. Terrestrializing is exactly how it is from the trailers, nothing really too special there, well maybe except for having to sit through the animation every single time, which drags the battle out longer than it needs to. Overall, just having to sit through the slow status elements, buffs, and debuff animations really make me remember the good times in Legends Arceus. I already touched on how I feel about the frame rate, but another issue is the camera. I don't really know what it is about the camera, but it feels like I'm almost always fighting with the camera in cities and other very populated areas. I'm sure part of this is due to the terrible frame rate issues, but I try to move the camera one way and then back the other and it just swings around very awkwardly. I don't know, maybe I'm just nitpicking at this point, but it really does feel like I'm fighting the camera sometimes. It just sucks really bad. How come moving a free roaming camera feels so right in Legends, but feels so wrong in Scarlet and Violet? There are a few other minor details that I could talk about, but because of how small they are, they really aren't worth mentioning. So to wrap things up, I really do think that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are good games. There is a lot here that makes the game great, mostly being open world, but there are a lot of other glaring issues that can ruin the experience for some people, all because Game Freak is too lazy to deliver to us a game that actually runs well. And I don't really want to hear any excuses about it being the hardware, because there are plenty of games on the Switch that are open world games that released in a better shape than this. Look, I don't hate this game just because I'm talking about all the negative things about it. I actually really think it's a fun game, but the problems with it really holds it back. I mean, hey, I do like the starters a lot, more than I did for Sword and Shield, so I mean, that says something about it, right? But anyway, I really do appreciate you guys for sticking around to the end of the video and listening to me ramble on about Pokemon. If you really liked the video, please leave a like and maybe, I don't know, hitting that subscribe button to help me grow the channel. Leave a comment if you agree with me or if you didn't like what I had to say about the game. And with that, take care and I'll see you guys in the next video.